I've summed up my 10 takeaways and thoughts about this book in this video. I highly recommend you to read the original book of the author. The Big Short Inside the Doomsday Machine by Michael Lewis is a riveting account of the 2007 to 2008 financial crisis that shook the world. Lewis, a former bond trader, takes us on a journey through the world of Wall Street and explains how the financial system was brought to its knees by a few savvy investors who saw the impending doom and bet against the housing market. The book is a fascinating read that sheds light on the complex financial instruments that were created in the years leading up to the crisis, and how they were used to create a massive bubble that eventually burst. The Big Short is divided into 3 parts, each focusing on a different group of investors who saw the opportunity to profit from the impending collapse of the housing market. The first part introduces us to Michael Burry, a hedge fund manager, who was one of the first to realize that the housing market was vastly overvalued. Burry created a complex financial instrument known as a credit default swap, which allowed him to bet against the housing market. The second part of the book focuses on Steve Eisman, a hedge fund manager, who was also betting against the housing market. Eisman saw the flaws in the subprime mortgage market and was convinced that the housing market would collapse. The first point highlights the main premise of the book, which is to provide a detailed account of the 2007 to 2008 financial crisis. This crisis was one of the worst financial disasters in modern history, and it had a profound impact on the global economy. The book explores the root causes of the crisis, which were complex and multifaceted, and it also examines the actions of the key players involved. By focusing on the actions of a few savvy investors who bet against the housing market, the book highlights the flaws in the financial system and the risks associated with complex financial instruments. The book is a sobering reminder of the dangers of unchecked greed and the importance of transparency and accountability in the financial system. It provides valuable insights into the workings of Wall Street and the global financial system, and it is a must-read for anyone interested in understanding the causes and consequences of the financial crisis. Point 2 highlights the fact that the author, Michael Lewis, is a former bond trader who is well versed in the workings of the financial system. This first-hand experience gives him a unique perspective on the events leading up to the financial crisis, and he is able to provide readers with a deep understanding of the complexities of the financial system. Lewis is a skilled writer who is able to explain financial concepts in an accessible way, making the book easy to understand for readers who may not have a background in finance. His writing style is engaging and entertaining, and he uses real-life examples and anecdotes to illustrate his points. By taking readers on a journey through the world of Wall Street, Lewis provides a behind-the-scenes look at the events that led up to the financial crisis, and he exposes the flaws in the financial system that allowed the crisis to occur. Overall, Lewis's background and writing style make The Big Short an engaging and informative read that is accessible to readers from all backgrounds. Point 3 highlights the fact that the financial system was brought to its knees by a few savvy investors who bet against the housing market. These investors were able to see the impending doom that was on the horizon, and they took advantage of the situation to make a profit. By betting against the housing market, these investors were able to make a significant amount of money, while the rest of the financial system was collapsing around them. This highlights the flaws in the financial system and the dangers of unchecked greed. The financial system is supposed to be designed to prevent such collapses, but in this case, it failed to do so. The book explores the actions of these investors in detail, showing how they were able to see what others could not and how they were able to profit from the situation. It also highlights the role of complex financial instruments, such as credit default swaps, in the financial crisis. Overall, Point 3 underscores the importance of transparency and accountability in the financial system, and it serves as a warning of the dangers of unchecked greed and speculation. Point 4 highlights the complex financial instruments that were created in the years leading up to the financial crisis. These instruments, such as mortgage-backed securities and collateralized debt obligations, were designed to spread risk across the financial system. In theory, this was supposed to make the financial system more stable and less prone to collapse. However, in practice, these instruments were often poorly understood and misused, leading to the creation of a massive bubble that eventually burst. The book provides a detailed explanation of how these financial instruments worked and how they contributed to the financial crisis. It also highlights the role of credit rating agencies in the crisis, which were supposed to provide independent assessments of the risk associated with these financial instruments, but instead gave them high ratings, leading investors to believe that they were safer than they actually were. Overall, Point 4 underscores the importance of understanding the risks associated with complex financial instruments and the need for transparency and oversight in the financial system. Point 5 highlights the fact that the complex financial instruments created a massive bubble that eventually burst, leading to the financial crisis. This bubble was created because the value of these instruments was based on the value of the underlying assets, which in this case were mortgages. However, many of these mortgages were subprime, meaning that they were given to borrowers who were unlikely to be able to repay them. As a result, when the housing market started to decline, the value of these financial instruments also declined, leading to massive losses for investors. The book provides a detailed explanation of how this bubble was created and how it eventually burst, leading to the collapse of the financial system. It also highlights the role of human behavior in the crisis, with many investors ignoring warning signs and continuing to invest in these financial instruments, even when it was clear that the market was unsustainable. Overall, Point 5 underscores the importance of understanding the risks associated with financial instruments and the need for caution and prudence in the financial system. Point 6 highlights that the book is divided into 3 parts, each focusing on a different group of investors who saw the opportunity to profit from the impending collapse of the housing market. The first part focuses on Michael Burry, a hedge fund manager, who was one of the first to realize that the housing market was vastly overvalued. Burry conducted extensive research, analyzing the underlying mortgages that supported the complex financial instruments, and concluded that the housing market was due for a massive correction. He then bet against the market, which ultimately made him a fortune. The second part of the book focuses on Steve Eisman, another hedge fund manager, who saw the flaws in the subprime mortgage market and was convinced that the housing market would collapse. Eisman conducted his own research and came to the same conclusion as Burry. He then bet against the market, which also made him a fortune. The third part of the book focuses on a group of investors who saw the opportunity to profit from the collapse of the housing market. These investors were able to purchase credit default swaps, which are financial instruments that pay out if a borrower defaults on a loan. By purchasing these swaps, the investors were able to profit from the collapse of the housing market. Overall, Point 6 underscores the fact that the financial crisis was not just a random event, but rather the result of the actions of individuals who were able to see what others could not. The book provides a detailed account of the actions of these investors, and it highlights the importance of independent thinking and research in the financial system. It also underscores the dangers of groupthink and the need for transparency and accountability in the financial system. Point 7 highlights the importance of transparency and accountability in the financial industry. The financial crisis of 2008 was caused by a lack of oversight and regulation, which allowed banks and other financial institutions to engage in risky behavior without consequences. This behavior was enabled by complex financial instruments that were difficult to understand and value, and which were often sold to unsuspecting investors. When the housing market collapsed, the value of these instruments plummeted, and many investors lost their life savings. The financial institutions that created these instruments were bailed out by the government, while the individuals responsible for their creation were not held accountable for their actions. This lack of accountability created a culture of greed and corruption in the financial industry, which has persisted to this day. To prevent another financial crisis from occurring, it is imperative that we hold financial institutions and individuals accountable for their actions. This requires increased transparency and oversight, as well as a willingness to prosecute those who engage in fraudulent or criminal behavior. It also requires individuals to take responsibility for their own financial decisions and to educate themselves about the risks and benefits of different investment strategies. Ultimately, the financial industry must be held to a higher standard of ethics and accountability if we are to prevent another financial crisis from occurring. Point 8 emphasizes the clarity and conciseness with which Michael Lewis explains the complex financial instruments that led to the 2008 financial crisis. The book provides a detailed and accessible explanation of these instruments, which were often misunderstood or deliberately obfuscated by those who sold them. For example, the book explains how mortgage-backed securities and collateralized debt obligations worked, and how they were used to create highly leveraged bets on the housing market. The book also explains how credit default swaps were used to insure against losses on these instruments, creating a web of interconnectedness that made the financial system vulnerable to collapse. By providing a clear and concise explanation of these instruments, Lewis helps readers understand how the financial crisis occurred and why it was so devastating. This understanding is essential if we are to prevent another financial crisis from occurring in the future. It allows individuals to make informed decisions about their investments, and it provides policymakers with the knowledge they need to regulate the financial industry effectively. The clarity and conciseness of Lewis's explanation also make the book highly readable and engaging, even for those who are not experts in finance. This accessibility is important because it allows a wider audience to understand the causes and consequences of the financial crisis, and to engage in a meaningful discussion about how to prevent it from happening again. Point 9 emphasizes that The Big Short is a must-read for anyone interested in understanding the causes of the financial crisis and the lessons we can learn from it. The book provides an in-depth and engaging account of the events leading up to the crisis, as well as the people who predicted it and profited from it. By telling the stories of these investors, Michael Lewis humanizes the crisis and makes it more accessible to readers who might otherwise find the topic dry or intimidating. The book also provides a clear and concise explanation of the complex financial instruments that led to the crisis, making it easier for readers to understand how these instruments worked and why they were so dangerous. In addition to its educational value, The Big Short is also an entertaining and well-written book. Lewis's writing style is engaging and humorous, and he has a talent for making complex topics accessible to a wide audience. The book is full of fascinating characters and memorable anecdotes, making it a page-turner even for readers who are not typically interested in finance. Overall, The Big Short is a valuable resource for anyone interested in understanding the causes of the financial crisis and the lessons we can learn from it. It provides a compelling and accessible account of one of the most significant events in recent history, and it highlights the importance of transparency, accountability, and ethical behavior in the financial industry. Thank you for your interest in this book. Please leave your feedback on these thoughts in the comments below, or just put a like on this video. It will help me stay motivated and make more videos like this. In the description of this video, you may find links where you can purchase this book.